The spirits who rebelled against their creator may not all be playing on the same team. Welcome to Skywatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert. We're talking about spiritual warfare in this series of special web-exclusive broadcasts available only at skywatchtv.com, the Skywatch TV channels on Roku and Apple TV, and the Skywatch TV mobile app. You won't see these on the network, our network broadcasts. Joining me as we discuss this, the author of the new book, Saboteurs, and our CEO, Tom Horn.
Good to be here again.
And the author of the new series of novels, The Red Wing Saga, Book 1, Blood Lies, Book 2, Blood Rights. My best friend, Sharon K. Gilbert.
Hi, sweetie.
Hi, love. One of the things you've done in the series, which is something we have talked about between us for quite some time, is that these fallen angels, if you will, or the small g gods who God, the Creator, Yahweh, condemned. Psalm 82 said, because you have ruled unjustly, though you are God's sons of the Most High, like men you shall die and fall like any prince. Why do we have this idea that they're all on the same team, that because they're opposed to God, that they're all allied with one another?
That makes no sense, does it?
I mean, if they've got the chutzpah to rebel against the Creator of the universe, why do we think they would have any problem trying to backstab one another?
Exactly, and I think that's one reason in mythology, at least, and you and I both believe, and I know you do as well, that what we call mythology is actually a retelling of what is real history.
Right. I'll be talking about that in Oklahoma City. Yeah.
They were battling each other all the time, and
Sure.
if that's indeed what happened, then the primordial gods were rebelled against by their kids, and the grandkids rebelled against the kids. And
Well, we see it in the book of Daniel, where the Prince of Greece goes to war against the Prince of Persia.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's biblical.
It is biblical, and so I think when you look at this massive game of spiritual risk that's taking place in the
Spiritual
world,
thrones.
yes, it's exactly what it is. It's pretty clear when you look at, and it could be that when the Lord said that a nation will rise up against nation, he was speaking not only of the generals and armies within those nations and tribes, but also the spirits behind them.
Absolutely, I believe that. And of course, you've already mentioned several different things. It goes back to what was going on with the Watchers, what was going on in the Divine Council. You have spirits there that are, in essence, they're getting ready to compete with one another, right, for supremacy. The whole battle of Armageddon, the whole battle of the end times is still this contest that is going on. Carl Gallup's just put out his new book, Gods and Thrones, right? It's kind of that idea. Remember some years ago, the book that came out that was called This Present Darkness?
Oh, yes.
And remember how the entities, they're all competing with each other in there, right? These fallen angels and demons.
Yeah.
But long before that, the screw tape letters, right? So, yeah, I think that is theologically sound to imagine that when Paul is talking about principalities, powers, rulers of darkness, spiritual wickedness in high places, it's a kind of rank and file. I mean, you can almost think of it as an army where you've got sergeants and you've got colonels and whatever. And in like any army, there's jealousy, there's envy among the ranks, right? Sometimes there's even sabotage among the ranks. We've had, how many times in war have we wondered how one of the leaders, on the battlefield wound up getting shot in the back, and it didn't appear that it came from an enemy's gun, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of competition in the natural world happens. It definitely also happens in the spirit world.
And I suspect that they argue, too, over what the meaning of Scripture is, because many of the things in prophecy that we argue over as humans is also unclear to the spirit realm, and so they're trying to figure out exactly what the Lord meant when he said the following. They couldn't figure it out when Christ came the first time.
That's right. Who the lords of this world would not have crucified if they'd have known, right? If they'd have known, they didn't understand. Well, they wouldn't. I wouldn't think that at the end they say, "Look, we're all going to die like men. Let's give it the best we got." Right? They still must be deluded enough to believe that they have some kind of chance, right? If they marshal their arms together, they're going to somehow become victorious. Between now and that day, though, there's this battle for the souls of men, which is also part of it. That's not the only thing. Not every demon out there is concerning itself with one of us, right? Sometimes, you've heard preachers that have said, really? You think the devil himself is bothering to mess around with you, right? He's got some little imps that are they go around dealing with this kind of stuff. But when you start becoming a threat, when you really do understand that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but are mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, right? Bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. When you start becoming that kind of a threat, When you're a Derek and Sharon Gilbert and you've dedicated your life to ministry and you begin vocalizing and you begin exposing the deeds of darkness, now you're at a different level, right? And you also understand, therefore, that you are constantly covering yourself in prayer. And people need to be careful when they're talking about spiritual warfare that I'm not talking about formulas. I'm not talking about counting beads, with all respect to some people. Or for that matter, evangelicals who think that they're going to stand in their room and command the darkness to the north, south, east, and west to do a particular thing. But if their own hearts are not clean, if they're lifted up in pride and think of themselves more than what they ought to and look down their nose at other Christians, if they're online trolling everybody they can and hurting people, I don't care how many formulas they go through at home, they're already being manipulated by darkness. So all of this really begins when it's antithetical to what brought down Lucifer. I will exalt my throne above this. It's pride goeth before a fall, right? So the opposite of that, I've seen people that they don't have it right. They don't really know how to pray, in my opinion, most effectively, and yet they are most effective. And the reason they are is because they're humble, they're contrite before God, they're sincere, and that is like a bulldozer in the spiritual realm, right? It just makes up the difference on everything else. So.
It does. That's so well said. You mentioned demons and how they're not all sort of one accord, and there may even be layers of demons. For those people who are not really in the know as to what a watcher is, what a demon is, what a fallen angel is, can you explain?
Yeah, I mean, and you know, years ago, right? So I was actually writing a paper. This is a long time ago, so I can't remember any of the details. But I remember the paper was on this question: where did demons come from? Right? And so I was going through all the different theories. Well, some people believe that there was a pre-Adamic race, and that when all of that got wiped out in this prehistory before Adam and Eve, the spirits of those human-like persons became what are the demons on the earth today, and that this might even explain why they want to be in a body, because those spirits were meant to be housed in some kind of physical form. There's some similar theories to that go into this idea that the giants, the offspring of the Watchers, that when the giants died and their spirits went into the underworld, they actually, some of them were left on the earth. Some of the apocryphal books talk about this, the Book of Jubilees, I think Enoch does. Yes. That a portion of them were left on the earth, and they are the demons that are on earth now. And a lot of the people we know, I think, accept that as the origin of demons. But over a long period of time, what I came to believe that it isn't one explanation, and this is why you have classifications from demons, because there could be some entities, you might think of them as fallen angels. There could be others that these are the spirits and the offspring, right, of the giants. So there could be several situations in which any one of these theories, or maybe all of them in one way or another, are kind of right? That makes up this invisible assembly.
Where was it we recently, where was it we recently, you and I recently saw the information that the Nephilim themselves were capable of breeding?
There is a newer translation. In fact, I mentioned in the previous program, George W.E. Nicholsburg, who combined a number of different extant texts of the Book of Enoch. We have some from Egyptian, Coptic, others from Ethiopian, and I think there's like a couple from Eastern Europe that have been found, and basically compiled them into the translation of the Book of Enoch that he's got. And in 1 Enoch chapter 6, which is the section of Enoch that deals with the Watchers landing on Mount Hermon, there is another group of offspring, like the first generation Watchers would produce the Nephilim, and from the Nephilim was produced another group, and of course the name of this other group is escaping me at the moment.
I know, I can't recall.
But it's a Greek term that basically means glorious ones, I think. And I'll have to look this up again because.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't give you a heads up that I was going to ask you that question, but it just came to mind.
But yeah, it was something that caught me by surprise, and in fact, I included it in my talk at not Boise, but I guess it was.
But it makes sense if you think of the Watchers having offspring, and then if you equate the Watchers to the Titans,
right?
Then the Titans had offspring, the Olympians, and the Olympians had offspring.
Right, that's right. Well, and also, I know lots of scholars look at it. The Watchers created the Nephilim. The Nephilim, they go about raping women and whatever. They're having offspring. These become the Gibborim. And so you have the Gibborim, the Samsunim, or whatever they call them, the Anunnaki, Anakim. And that this might also explain why over time they seem to be shorter in height. That is, they're basically breeding down like Nita's miniature horses, right? Kind of a really bad example there, but
the little dachshund.
But yeah, yeah, the Nephilim dachshund.
That's too scary for Halloween. We can't go there.
But I mean, that would kind of agree though with what this writer is discussing if he's bringing together these different attacks and comparing them one to each other.
Yeah.
Now, in the occult world, it is also believed that if you could bring about the raising of one of these underworld spirits, Raphaim even carries with it this term to be healed, as in to be healed from death, right? So there are those who do believe that it's actually proper interpretation to say that Isaiah was actually praying, "Let not the dead live, let not the giants rise again." That's what the Dewey version translates that there is an idea that if you could bring about the incarnation, well, and Cush beget Nimrod, and Nimrod began to be a Gibborim. That's a pretty fascinating statement. And even the Hebrew there implies something was happening in his genetic material, which kind of echoes back to where in the Old Testament it says all flesh was corrupt, that something was happening in the genetics, and that as that was happening, these, what, are they becoming fit receptacles for incarnation by the spirits of the dead to rise up in them. The Raphaim also, the shades, right? The shades of the dead, which, because we're talking about Halloween and all that, also connects to the idea of ghosts and haunted houses and all of that kind of thing.
And vampires and werewolves.
But in any case, there is this belief, we started a couple of weeks ago talking about Aleister Crowley and spirit cooking. There is this belief that if you could become sufficiently possessed by this underworld supernaturalism, that could translate through the bloodlines. Some of the occult beliefs about the divine rights of kings and all that, they follow these bloodlines back through the Rosicrucians and the Freemasons and all that. That would grant you particular kinds of powers, right, as a result of your blood. So, and
I get into all of that in this series. I get into all of that. I don't use the term. In fact, I think one of the fallen angels uses the term epigenetics at one point, and they just look at him like, what? Oh, yeah, you don't know that term yet.
It's only Tuesday. Eliud, that was the name I was looking at. E-L-I-O-U-D, Eliud.
Yes.
Which means God of Majesty, according to the Strong's Greek. So,
are we going to do another one of these? Because if we do, we need to get into the Cthulhu sort of connection to all of this. Right.
And that's kind of how we stretch from that into, or connect from that into the current ancient aliens theory.
We just start with that and go into aliens.
So, well we're leading up to Halloween as we talk about spiritual warfare. Again, some new releases from Defender Publishing that you should add to your reference library. Saboteurs by Tom Horn, Gods and Thrones by Carl Gallups, The Deeper State by Lieutenant Colonel Bob McGinnis. And then if you're more inclined to read for enjoyment, but looking for something that will also educate as well as entertain, The Red Wing Saga, Blood Lies and Blood Rights by Sharon K. Gilbert. And then coming up after Halloween, Josh Peck and I have a new book coming called The Day the Earth Stands Still, which connects all of this occult and spiritual warfare to the current ancient aliens and UFO phenomena. I can see you thinking. We thank you for watching as we keep watch. With Tom Horn and Sharon K. Gilbert, I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is Skywatch TV. Get 2 free books on spiritual warfare when you order Blood Lies by Sharon K. Gilbert. Call 844-750-4985 or log on to skywatchtvstore.com.